I spent the summer of '83 with Henry Outram, Laird of Shelmerston, in his grand hall working on a new piece. It was supposed to be about the volcano, but once I arrived, I found myself particularly taken. Henry was a delightful host, always excited to have us bright young artists around, and always ready with a charming question or a fortifying glass of something. His daughter, I think her name was Mallory or Valerie or something, was usually outside roaming the grounds. Henry said she was discovering herself and learning so. One day, I came across the perfect finishing touch to my sculptural masterpiece, but it turned out to belong to the wretched child. I tried to explain to her why I needed it. I went to Henry, thinking he could make her give me the boat. But to my astonishment, Henry told me it was up to her if she wanted to give it to me. Henry called his daughter and we all talked about it. When Henry suggested that maybe I could buy the boat, her little eyes lit up. It cost me £200 for that little wooden boat.
Henry was a good dad at heart.
I wonder how...
After my wife Penny's death, I struggled to find ways to spend time with my daughter. It had hit us both hard, but, stiff upper. Looking for something we could do together, I bought Valerie a set of paints. But she never even opened them. I was cross at first, but then one day I managed to talk her into coming into the park with me to paint some of the nature she loves so much. She wasn't very enthusiastic, but it was a disaster. Valerie simply didn't have the temperament for painting. She had a huge, silly tantrum and threw all the paints away. I told her I wasn't having this kind of childish behavior, and I told her to stay. The famous sculptor Vernon Russet was working on a huge statement piece in my honor, A statue of a camel with my head. When I saw it, I felt quite uncomfortable, but I didn't want to upset him. The week before the public unveiling, Vernon had me visit the statue. He needed to make some final adjustments to the face. Valerie came along too. She looked like thunder. She hated that statue, and when the statue was revealed, the nose was missing. Fortunately, we all managed to cover our surprise and act like nothing was wrong, so no one was any the wiser. Some fella, I'm pretty sure I know what happened to that nose. Aha, the old Outram spirit. Good for you, Valerie. Your mother would have been proud of you.
Oh. Okay, we're in.
Hello?
Oh,
I'm Mr. Whitstable.
Morris, we don't have time.
Mr. Whit...
oh, they... Oh, ha!
Yes, yes.
Hi!
Solve more.
Oh, okay.
Oh, for goodness...
Happy riddle hunt.
Great. Morris.
Ah.
You two. Hello. Spot.
Well, we're trying to find a replacement custodian. You've surely seen the volcano.
Oh, yes. Poor Aggie. Must be very...
Aggie?
Aggie.
Oh, well...
Oh, Morris.
Oh.
I'm flat.
Oh.
Thank you.
You too, Val.
Oh, I'm sorry, Morris.
Come back later.
Oh, well...
Goodbye.
Oh, slow down, Sparky. I need to get some things straight.
No time, Morris. We need to...
Well, I get that.
Oh.
Part of...
Yes.
And you...
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
I always thought...
Yeah. And they were always the visitors' favourites.
Ogden? So, was...
We were 14 when we started going out. Me and my friend Cassia had started a beach clean at the weekend, and Ogden turned up with his mate Godfrey. I had no idea Ogden liked me. He was the tallest in our year, and we all fancied him. By the time we reached the little cove at the north end of the beach, he'd asked me, he'd been going out for a few years when I applied to Floristry College on the mainland. I didn't tell Ogden. I didn't believe I'd get in, and didn't want him to think I was trying to get away from him. Ogden might have looked mature and confident, but he was a gentle soul, not nearly as sure of himself as he looked. But I did get in, and he was gutted. I felt terrible. I didn't want to hurt Ogden. He said he didn't mind, but I could see he was covering. My last week on Shelmerston was really hard. Every time I saw him, it felt... Finally, on my last night, I made a decision. I would take an apprenticeship at the garden centre on the island instead, so we could stay together. It felt like the right... But when I opened the door the next day, I found Ogden's sousaphone left on the doorstep. I was terrified. What did it mean? I ran down to his house, my heart in my mouth. His mum, she never did like me, was a little bit smug. She told me I was more than a bit tearful, but, you know, looking back, I think we both needed to have a bit of an adventure.
I spent a lot of time with Sally during this period. We used to meet up quite often when she returned.
How did that... I'm getting...
I remember we was walking home from school, a bunch of us, and I told him my granddad said the lad had a live Bactrian camel living somewhere in the woods. Everyone laughed, but I told them it was true. Ogden didn't believe me. Someone would have seen it. He dared me to climb in, sneaking past the big house. We were almost caught by the gamekeeper and had to run. Hell for leather for the woods. We reached the trees out of breath. I was bent double and leant against a tree. Ogden had better breath control and he recovered quickly. He saw it first. The clouds parted, the moon shone down. The next day, we were kicking ourselves. We had no proof. No one was going to...
Oh,
Camels.
It was the day of the island cricket match out on the volcanic sandspit. We had lost to Appledore for the past 3 years and it was my first year as captain. I didn't want another loss on my watch. Ogden had just come back from New Zealand and told me he'd be up for it. I wasn't sure. Ogden showed up with his own bat. He told me he'd won it in a pub in Dunedin and that it had belonged to a famous New Zealand player. I wondered whether I should put him into bat at all, but Ogden whispered to me that he'd been playing on... Ogden hit a 6 with his first stroke. We went wild! And just when I thought it must be a fluke, he hit another, and another. Ogden hit so many cricket balls out into the sea that we had to stop play. We'd run out. It was a stunning win, and we carried Ogden back across the sand and into the Camel. Even though he'd won the match pretty much single-handedly, he insisted it was all down to the bat and plenty of practice.
how's...
Hey, Morris.
I remember when a young Ogden asked to join the Shelmerston Silver Band. I recognised his talent immediately. He could play anything, that lad. Literally anything. Eventually he settled on the sousaphone, which he always insisted on playing with his lucky bronze mouthpiece. One evening after the Silver Band played a storming concert in the Camel, Ogden and Sally got it into their heads to go for a night swim in the harbour, young love and all that. Ogden let it really rattled him. Ogden was worried he wouldn't be able to perform without it. But of course, next time we played, he was just as good as ever. He could play anything, that lad.
Ogden.
Ugh. They see.
I missed Ogden so much, and for the first month there was no letter at all. I took my place at college on the mainland without knowing how he was feeling. It was a shock how low it made me, even though I was working with flowers, my dream job. I threw myself into making friends. Then the letters started arriving, and it was amazing. Each one came with a penny from a different country. One from Valparaiso, another from Dakar. I wrote back and told Ogden about my course, trips to Kew Gardens, which were amazing. When he arrived in Christchurch, he'd send me flowers pressed in his letters. I sent him a shell from home, and then he sent me a New Zealand. I came back to the island, and when my father died, I opened up my own florist shop on the quay. I tucked the halfpenny under the... One day, Ogden showed up at the shop, completely out of the blue. He told me there was nowhere like shows.
What?
I... Yummy kibble.
Oh, this feels so good. Terrific to see you, Morris.
Oh, it's great to...
Well...
Ah.
Yes.
Oh.
Are you sure? The island is in dire need.
I know, and I sympathize, but Sally is the other half of me. I need to watch over her. Everything else may be changing, but she's my constant, and I'm hers. I need to go into the West with her when it's her time.
Yes, I understand. You two always did have an enviable connection.
We were very lucky to find each other. And I'm still lucky just to watch over her. Makes this place still feel a bit like home, even as it changes. So I'm going to stay. But listen, once you've found the custodian, come back and enjoy a sniff of that beer in the Camel with me, eh?
Sure, Ogden. Well... Well...
You did...
Hey, how...
No.
Oh, yeah?
Well...
What?
That's right.
The bog? But
Yep.
Wow.
More time.
The one part of the...
Yes.
I always... Yeah,
I only knew Greg briefly, from the summer that I took over the campsite and he retired. He seemed harmless enough, if a bit strange. As part of his official handover process, he gave me a big box of rule books that I was apparently... I couldn't believe them. The amount of inches apart each tent had to be, the angle of pitch, permitted colours of guy ropes. No skipping ropes, marbles, conkers or throwing games. No singing with hand drums. I built a huge fire on the beach, invited the whole site for a big party and burned the lot. But then, awkward, Greg showed up. I guess he'd been collecting some things from his caravan and came to see what the noise was all about. You could tell he wasn't comfortable, but he must have noticed what we were burning, but he never mentioned it. That was the last time I saw him. I always felt a bit guilty.
well, it's a good thing she kept one of them.
What's this? I'm getting...
Miles and I came to Shelmerston for the Sheller Cup final. Miles was the world champion for ages. Greg, the campsite manager, was a huge Sheller fan. Miles was up early every morning training for the big race. Greg would always be lurking in the background, taking photos. It became rather annoying. How many photos did he need? Oh God, and one time he turned up at our barbecue. So race day arrives and Greg is there with his camera, of course, getting in everyone's way. So Greg leans out into the track as the pack came past. And Miles goes crashing right into Greg. Total disaster. Miles goes down and Quasi flies past him to win the... Later that night, all us Shellers were on our way back from the pub and we heard Greg outside his caravan, just sat by himself. So then Greg came back and hung out with us, brought his camera and showed us all his Sheller race photos. You know, that guy was actually a pretty great photographer.
Shell...
My whole life I've dreamed of seeing a Jempson's sea owl. One day, I read the news that a guy on this little island called Shelmerson had discovered one. I had to see it. The only B&B on the island booked up really fast, so I decided to stay at the temporary campsite set up by the guy who discovered the sea owl, Greg Litherland. Greg had given the owl a name, David Abrahams. A bit weird, but I guess he was the one who found it. And because it had no mate, it was lonely. I got to know Greg a bit during my stay. He really seemed to resent all the noise and fuss on the island. His island, as he thought of it. And the irony was that he was the one who Greg told us he'd take us up in groups to the owl's nest site. But I snuck up early with my camera. It saw me and it flew off hooting and I didn't get a picture. I was gutted. I had to make do with a picture of the model. It wasn't the same.
Ah.
I love camping. We've come to Shelmerston every summer with the kids for years. OK, our tent is a bit bright, but that means the kids can always see it. Greg seemed angry about everything this year. He told us our tent was outside of the regulation colours. And being around one day, Greg confiscated my little one's kite. He was terrifying. We still sometimes get nightmares about it. When I saw Greg put the whistle down, I pinched it and took out the pea. You know, the thing that makes the noise. I threw that pea somewhere Greg would never find it. You should have seen his face when he blew his whistle.
Oil.
My best thing is throwing discs. I am really good. I like playing with Dan and Toddler. It's our favourite thing when we go camping on Shelmerston. One time, Greg Litherland came up the beach, all red-faced like an angry tomato. He pointed at a sign. It said, "No throwing games." He was yelling and he told me to give him my disc, but I wouldn't. I threw it high up into the air and it went bang into a massive bird. Then the bird fell into the sea. I felt so awful. I never meant to hurt the bird. The whole thing was terrible. Mr. Litherland was screaming. He waded into the sea, picked up that bird and carried it back to the beach.
Oh. Greg! Oh, hello.
Morris, what are you doing here?
Hi.
Yeah, Greg.
Oh, you don't...
Well, now hold on, Greg.
Oh, isn't it? No.
Fine.
Thanks.
It's not looking...
Don't... Yes.
Really? Well, loved me, perhaps.
No.
Hey,
Well...
Aggie?
No time to...
Well...
So...
I certainly
Oh, I don't know.
Does it?
Oh.
Yes.
Not...
I swim with a pod south of the Fire Isles. I believe the dry-siders call the larger one Shelmerston. It's where the ceremony happens for the dry-sider who stopped the world from crack. I did not believe it at first. A food which snaps so dry. Then one morning at sunup, I followed the ship and caught a blice or samphire on the dry side and came up out of the sea to ask them for toast. They asked me to put on some pants, but I refused to denigrate myself with dry-side fabric. No matter, I had brought some shiny coins with me that I found on the seabed and secreted in my swimming fall. Sam took me to their parents' tow shack, but they refused to serve me without clothes. They also told me that my shiny coins were unsuitable, too old. So Sam lent me some I spend my nights swimming through the black waters of the deepest ocean trenches. By day, I come up...
Oh. Is it?
I get...
It was the 6th summer after I spawned that I went to my first Aggie's Day ceremony. You know, Aggie, the dry cider who saved the world from cracking in two. We don't go on land until we're 6 years old. It was so loud and hot out there, all that shell blowing. I was bored, and my body felt dry and heavy. I was too young, really. Sam saw I was fed up. They took me up the beach, away to the dunes, and Sam gave me a little polished stone of my own to play with. We became good friends. Sam helped a lot. They were always on my side. My pod, we were quite traditional, didn't like us work. That stone was my lucky charm. I took it with me when I went for the interview, and I took it down with me when I went on my first dive. I had a pocket. Sam took me under their fin, invited me out to the camel, and let me stay with them and Blythe on the ferry if it was a late one. And there were plenty.
I remember.
Oh.
I first met Sam when I sailed the new ferry, the Queen of the Isles, into harbor. Of course, I'd heard of the fish folk, but I'd never met one. Sam was in the next time I was in Chelmerston, we went for a drink at the Camel. I'm more into bats than beer, but Sam was intriguing, and the atmosphere in there was great. Like, Sam invited me over for toast and hot chocolate. Honestly, hot chocolate doesn't do it for me, but the toast, that malt seed. I stayed over. In the morning, we went for a walk along. Just as the sun was rising, I took them flying on my back. We went up. It was on the next trip to Chelmerston. We just sighted land when Sam's head popped out of the water.